Joining me to discuss the BTC price and other Bitcoin news is our week in review panel. We've got CoinDesk Managing Editor of Technology, Christie Harkin in Toronto, and Managing Editor of Markets, Brad Keoun in Austin. Hello there, Brad and Christie. Happy Friday. All right, so this has certainly been an eventful week for Bitcoin. We've seen all-time highs at the beginning of the week until Wednesday when it was just under $69,000. Then a bit of a broad retreat in the markets. What's going on, Brad?
Well, Christine, we're just looking back at, sometimes you have to kind of figure out what's actually happened over the past week. I was just looking back at the charts, and we were around 61,000 this time last week. So we had that big round trip, as it were, going up to the all-time high just below 69,000 on Wednesday. And then we've kind of come off the past couple of days. So, now around 64,000. So again, it's just another reminder of how volatile this market can be. And I think we said last week, things were looking pretty bullish. And sure enough, we made the move up to get a new big all-time high on the heels of that inflation report that came out. But then, traders and people seeing, okay, this bolsters the case for Bitcoin as an inflation hedge. But then, markets kind of sold off, not just Bitcoin, but also stocks. People kind of jumping to the next level of, okay, what does this mean for the Fed? This might mean the Fed has to move faster on monetary policy, to tighten monetary policy to keep inflation under control. And generally speaking, when they tighten monetary policy, that's bad for assets seen as risky, and Bitcoin is part of those. So here we are down at 63,000, but we look pretty stable at this level.
It's interesting to see that tug of war going on, because that CPI report where we saw 6.2% year over year inflation after that October report, that seemed to bolster Bitcoin up and supported that narrative that, high inflation, a lot of money printing, while Bitcoin seems to be a safe bet against inflation and a hedge against that. But then we have that news as well about Evergrande in China potentially defaulting on its debts, and what that might mean for stablecoins that back their assets but with commercial paper and hold Chinese commercial paper, how that could impact the crypto markets. So it's really interesting to see this push and pull between narratives. And as you mentioned, a more hawkish Fed that may begin tapering their huge asset purchasing programs. And so what are we seeing in terms of margin calls, long and short-term holders, Brad?
Well, we had that big run up on Wednesday, and then, we haven't been in, I don't think people have been saying prior to this run up that we were super overheated or leveraged. But we did have quite a big, it just always happens when you have a big size sell-off.
I've heard people say it's much cheap and the sentiment coins.
Well, okay, yeah, for sure. Those are, people are saying that is definitely a sign of froth in crypto markets. Absolutely. But it's specifically in, like the leverage for funding of perpetual swaps, that's what people look at. And I haven't been hearing people talking about it being particularly high. That said, we had a pretty steep sell-off after the all-time high on Wednesday, and there were, $144 million of liquidations, which is a high amount. We haven't had that for probably a couple months, but, it's not as high as it's been sometimes. But yeah, that always accelerates or exacerbates the volatility for sure.
In terms of news items, of course, this week, Apple's Tim Cook announced revealed that he owns some crypto. A lot of folks speculate probably owns Bitcoin and Ether. And I guess it just goes to this idea of mass adoption. More folks are getting into the space, more respected folks of the traditional tech titan era. AMC is saying that they're going to be accepting Bitcoin as payments in movie theaters, which is an interesting bet. And the Mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez, announced on our show on CoinDesk TV that they will actually be giving out a Bitcoin dividend to residents of Miami, as well as trying to educate folks on getting digital wallets. Christie, what is really interesting though about this is this really a Bitcoin dividend?
Well, in a way, yeah. I mean, what the residents of Miami are going to be able to get from this wallet, from at least what I've been able to understand from reading and listening to them, they're going to get real Bitcoin. And what we're working with here is, it is super convoluted. And I'm going to put that right out there because I have read about this several times trying to figure out where the Bitcoin is actually coming from. And it's perfectly clear if you understand it, which I'm still working for. Here's the thing. So what we've got is they are staking so there's these things called city coins, which started, I think, back in June. It's built on Stacks. Now, Stacks is in itself built on Bitcoin as a smart contract layer built on Bitcoin. And you can mine city coins by forwarding Stacks coins into a city coin smart contract. And the city coin of choice in this case would be Miami coin on the Stacks blockchain. So, and then 30% of the Stacks that miners forward is sent directly to a reserved wallet for that city, in this case, Miami. The remaining 70% of the Stacks that miners forward is distributed to the city coin holders who stack their tokens. And there is a way of generating yield on this, and that yield can be paid out in Bitcoin, apparently. And the yield that's being generated through this fairly convoluted method is a way of generating income, which could be eventually, they're saying, the equivalent of the entire operating budget of the city. And the city can do whatever they want with those dividends. They can use it to build bridges and roads and do whatever, or they can give it back to their citizens. And in this case, it looks like what they're doing is giving a portion of it at least back to the citizens. They still have to work out the logistics of how that's going to work. We know that El Salvador has distributed Bitcoin to its citizens via a government-run built wallet that has had its glitches, to say the least. And Miami has not yet revealed how they plan to do this distribution, what method, what wallet, but they're working on it. And the point is to educate their citizens about Bitcoin and its potential, especially with inflation. The mayor cited inflation as being a motivating factor. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. And Mayor Suarez said that he was testing it with a group of young men as a sort of a test case to see how this would work in distributing funds like this. And he also said that so far, Miami Coin has generated about $20 million of revenue for the city. He said that if it reached a point where it was $400 million, which is what the city gathers in tax revenue, that he would essentially make Miami a taxless city, a city that runs without taxes, which would certainly be interesting.